live. Hello. It is Wednesday the 19th of July 2023 and I decided to continue reading Life as Carola because I'm coming towards the end, and this was quite a journey, this book. It's a life of Joan Grant. She lived 1907 till 1989, and this life of Carola plays, well, here it's 1536 in the last chapter. She was banished from the castle. She was an illegitimate child of Lord Griffin, and her mother had to leave when she was little, and her mother died, and she had quite a difficult life as Carola. She's had many lives, but I loved this book. And we are now in chapter 20, is it already 27 or 26? We are in 26, chapter 26, and it's entitled Two Effigies. While still a young man, Carlos had brought home from Greece this stone for his sarcophagus. It had been carved when Michel, still a young sculptor, had fame had not yet taken into her train, had captured the quick ambitions of his youth in this ageless marble. He was dressed as a young gallant, smiling as though he dreamt of Lalage, whom he had not yet seen on earth. Now, as he had wished, he lay in state, not on a bier before the high altar, but in the side chapel where the Ludovicis were buried. He had left a manuscript of instructions for his funeral. Before the lid is set on my sarcophagus, I will lie in it for a day and a night, wearing not grave clothes, but my scholar's robe. Let my death bring no sorrow to those I love, for they must rejoice now that I am free of my age. As I read these words, I wondered if, while he wrote them, Carlos thought of the two lands where the people dwelt, where the people knew death as a friend, built their tombs while they were still young, and there with flowers on days of festivals. Anna wanted to stay with me while I kept watch through the night, but I told her that I wished to be alone. The coffin lid on which lay the effigy was on the floor of the chapel, ready to be lifted into place. The face of Carlos was quiet as ivory. They seemed to share the same carven austerity. It was difficult to believe that one had housed his spirit, and the other only the memory of his youth. What form did the spirit of Carlos now wear? Was he a young man in the foreign ruff he had affected, with the hilt of his small sword jewelled with emeralds? Did he feel his pulses hurry with youth, as when he had loved the beautiful Lalage? Or did he find the tranquillity of age a more serene habiliment? It was the first time I had been in a church since I had escaped from the convent, yet here I did not feel a heretic. The flames of the tall candles flickered in the draught. I seemed to see the marble figure of the young Carlos stir into life. He rose from off the tomb and came towards me. Now he wore a violet doublet and crimson trunk hose. His pointed beard was black, perfumed with ambergris. The single ruby in his right ear glistened as it caught the light. As I went towards him, I found I was wearing a blue dress, the first of the many dresses he had given me when he was an old man. His hand was warm on mine. We stood there together, and faintly, as though through a mist, I saw the corpse of an old man on a bier, and kneeling beside it a woman whose face was hidden by a mourning veil. I wondered how she had come in without my hearing her, and then I knew that she was Carola, asleep. Hand in hand, the young Carola and I went from the church. We walked along the town walls and saw the river glinting far below us in the first rays of the rising sun. We came to the wall of our garden and climbed over it. I could feel the cracks in the plaster rough under my fingers. No longer did snowdrifts cover the bare earth, for it was a garden where spring and autumn joined with summer. The mulberry tree was in fruit above the hyacinths. There was blossom on the same bough as ripening plums. At first I was a little shy of the young Carlos. We walked together of the old man he had been. We talked together of the old man he had been, and he spoke of him with the fond indulgence that youth has for age. You were very patient with me, Carola. It was you who first showed me this garden as we see it now. Sometimes even in sleep I was an old man, and you took me here and said that for me to pace these paths in my black robe was as if I brought winter to the flowers. You showed me how to meet Lalage again. It would have distressed her if she had seen me old and sorrowful. I asked him, "Can you remember what you knew when you were the old Carlos?" "Yes, I can remember, but much of that time is grey and difficult to see from here. I am still too near to death, as though I had drunk deeply of wine and were bemused. I used to tell you that you had made me believe in miracles, yet I did not know that death could work so great a miracle as to give an old man back his youth. Carlos, did you know that I and Alcestis had been lovers?" He smiled. "Even the old Carlos knew that, but he loved you both for your courtesy of silence. He was so contemptuous of his own weakness that would not let him pretend an anger that he could not feel, an anger that would have left you free to go with his godson to your happiness. Will you forgive that old man, Carola? Do the stars ask forgiveness for setting the pilot on his course?" We were looking up at the house when the window of my room opened. A woman leaned out of it, a woman whose brow was calm as a summer river. Carlos turned to me. "There is Lalage." He paused, as if a little bewildered. "I had a dream that she and the child were dead, but I'm here waiting for her. She will soon bring my son down to me, to join me." The woman came across the lawn towards us. Carlos took her in his arms. Over his shoulder she smiled at me, and I knew that it was she who had caused the garden to flower for him. I awakened. It was early morning, and the sun flowed down through the high window. I put up my hand and felt the heavy morning veil. I knew Carlos had found his heaven, and yet I wept. I knelt beside 2 statues of my father and a young lover, and on earth they could not speak to me. Chapter 27. Torchlight. Anna hoped that with the coming of the warm weather my cough would pass, but it never released its hold on me. Yet I found peace, for I was weary of being Carola. When autumn came, it seemed as though my spirit consumed my flesh, as if it were wax that burned to light my dusk. I knew my shining one was often near, knew that from death's face would shine his eyes, and I should feel his hand on mine, strength in his fingers, wisdom on his palm. If I had been in truth a troubadour, I could have set my thoughts upon a page to leave a record, so that some other one who hears what I hear, sees what I could see, could look down through the years and know a friend. What should I set there if I knew the words? What have I learned as my philosophy through this short life of 27 years? I have seen time as slow as a slow river, fed by myriad streams, whose source came down from heaven in life's rain. It soaked into the earth, then trickled forth over the pebbles of a narrow rill, and as it threaded in between the rocks it learned of their immutability. Then it knew moss grew on this barren stone, and as the channel deepened It heard the whisper of the water plants, and felt their long leaves flowing in its course, tugged at their roots. It passed between the shafts of growing reeds and heard them stirring in the morning wind with a murmur of bird cries and the coming storm. Soon there were dragonflies which lighted for a moment and skimmed on, but left a bright gleam from their fugitive wings. Contemplative frogs croaked from the bank, and fish flashed through the shadows and were gone. Then the stream widened into shining pools where animals came down at night to drink. The water curved the footprints they had made, the narrow prints of oryxes and deer, the claws of leopards, the cruel pads of wolves. Yet wider pools where unicorns came down at evening, the hippogriff folded his wings to slake his thirst, and the great paws of lions set in the earth their seal of majesty. Still it flows on, then feeds a ripple echoing from a laughing child, and in the shallow this same child shall bathe, and beat the quiet water with its hands into bright drops. The child has grown. Now he sits on the bank and carves a boat, gives it a twig for a mast, a leaf for sail, and launches it into the stream of time. Onwards this boat is borne, till hollowed logs are poled by men who sing of trackless hills where trees strive to the light. There now their torches mirrored in its flood, war torches with destruction in their flames, and in the rapids long canoes are wrecked where blood weaves through the pools like scarlet weeds. Here the stream narrows. Now is the water dark, for towering cliffs obscure the sun away. A deeper, ever deeper drives the cleft into the mountains. By its course must change. A rock wall bars the path, but where the stream has seemingly to end, a man stands poised above it, naked, alone, holding a fish spear in his upraised hand, searching the flood with no fear in his eyes, searching to see that which he longs to find, the fish, the scarlet fish, which knows the sea. Now ever faster is the water's plunge, down rapids and by perilous ravines, weary with foam, yet urgent to press on. It joins a marsh silent and choked with reeds, whose placid shallows drowse in noonday heat. But on it travels over flats of mud, through lazy meads and over languorous falls. Now it is wider, now it can hear the chant of fishermen that cast their glittering nets. Then quietly, with no tumult, it flows on to join the river of eternity. Now is it one in slow processional with all the myriads of its brother streams. Now are there boats in splendid pageantry, the silver barges of proud memory, the spreading purple sails of rulership, the patient rhythm of the rower's arms, and the clear vision of the steering oar. Caught in the shallows there are other boats, where mourners weep the melancholy tide, where sable veils obscure the figurehead, and the black masts curve no sail to the wind. These mourners do not see the lovers pass, lovers whose boats move without sound of oars, with masts that have put forth their leaves again, whose decks are violet and whose prows are doves. The river widens, for away yet clear at evening it can hear the rising music of the sea, that sea whose other shores no man can know, until the stream of time has carried him from mountain into plant, from beast to steersman. The man may set his course under the sky, for he can see the star that pilots him to harbour in the island of the blessed. I have seen the wisdom of the gods as fire, from that dim past when all-embracing power men know as God created earth, and sent the children from one another moon to teach those others newly born as man. These little people came down from the woods, the caves, the shelters hollowed from the cliffs, to where a moonborn sat by a friendly fire that warmed their chill mortality. Yet they had made no torch to kindle there, and were content to come forth from the dark to receive comfort from a counsellor. 1,000 years, 1,000 years have aged the earth. Now are the ones who called the moon their home returned to join the dwellers on the heights. Now little men must kindle their own fire. No longer through the shadows of the plain do great fires blaze, but little points of light from twigs, from burning leaves gleam through the night. Their light is pale as star-reflecting pools, yet does it thread the valleys, and its sparks are carried on the questing breeze of dawn. Some sparks fall into marshes and are quenched, but others blaze a path through tinder grass of gained experience. Some flee from their stifling huts before the roar of memory's bright flame. They are afraid that it may sear their flesh and come to blind their leaden-lidded eyes. They built new huts on deserts of grey ash, where no wood grows to feed another flame. But there are others who plunge in the fire, and from cold ashes like a phoenix rise, seeing the distant earth shadowed and cold, while the long feathers of their soaring wings, strong on the air, circle towards the sun. Then came the land where lived the long in years. Their temple beaconed hills flowed to the sea. Makers of moon paths built serene causeways worn by multitudinous wayfarers. Many wayfarers. Then wisdom's wreath lost sovereignty. On basalt thrones sat men in empty robes. They ruled by power and scorned humility. Now priests were bowed with mistress, no buds unfolded on the lotuses, and looking pools reflected nothingness. Yet power stalked through the land, that tarnished power when men assail the gods. No longer did the shadows flee the light, for men rode out to battle in their hate. Priests wielded magic only to show their strength, and sorrow settled heavy on their land. Yet in the hills a pale light still endured, and from it came a cry, "Master, hast thou forgotten us?" Then came the voice to man, "Since you have brought desecration on my land and made my noonday into night, now is the time come when that which I created shall be destroyed. You who hear my voice within your heart shall follow the path of the moon across the sea to far countries where the soil is yet untilled. There must you learn again to plant your corn, and when its virtue has entered into you, then shall you find a tree. From it you will cut a living branch, and you must learn patience until the sap and the leaves upon it have returned into its strength. Then from it you shall carve a torch, and in the fullness of my time there shall come amongst you one who holds fire in his hand, and you will be no longer in darkness. Those of you who do not hear my voice shall stay, and I will speak to you on the evening of the 7th moon. There is no place in my land where you can hide from the echoes of my voice. Even the deaf shall hear it, and the ears of the dead shall be opened, for I shall speak above the thunder. Yea, beside my voice the thunder shall be as the whisper of wind in the grass. The clouds shall be as mountains before you, and their colour shall be of the darkness of your own hearts. Then there shall fall a stillness, and you shall see death in the likeness of death. In the stillness shall come a small sound, and in the dust you shall see the circle you have forgotten, the circle in the heavy drops of rain, and the drops shall build themselves to rods, and the rods even into pillars of water. The water shall rise over the valleys and drive you, even as you drove your torchbearers into the hills. And the water shall be as the floor of a temple, whose pillars are water, and whose roof is cloud. And one by one the hills shall vanish, and you shall crowd together in your fear on the island that were mountains. But on the 40th day there shall be no land, and the water will have buried the dead. When the great rain had cleansed the earth so that again it could become a place of fire, the flames burned in their serenity. The river of the two lands reflected the beacons which marked its course, and a light was set in the masts of the boats, and it was in their brows also, even the oars were luminous. Then once again did man forget his gods. The mightiest temple shadowed men dressed as priests, and incense swirled through barren sanctuaries. The sacrificial fires had burned to ash, cold were the altars set to absent gods. Then in the gathering darkness of the west a star fell from the heavens. A child was born, a child with wisdom living on his tongue, a child with eyes that had seen many moons, yet knew horizon for eternity. And men brought torches to him in their hands for kindling, that in his flame grew bright. He spoke, the leaves hushed, and the birds were still to listen. Even the hurrying clouds stayed in their course, bound were the waves, silent the running brooks in honor of celestial majesty. The rising sun lit battlement hills. Then from their caves swarmed leather-pinioned bats, and stealthy panthers left their jungle lairs. Imperial eagles, dead yet purple jest, swooped down upon that Galilean shore, destruction in their claws, death in their hearts. The morning star returned into the sky. Still did the light be kindled blaze on earth. From hand to hand the line of torches passed, unquenched, undying, and with each torch went the word, "Is your torch seasoned for this kindling?" Then men forgot the word, and brought green wood without age, with sap not turned to strength, wood that can smoulder but give forth no light. No more were torches lifted to the wind that streamed their far flames on the air, but in great buildings flickered and grew dim, buildings where stood tall candles of cold wax, and golden lamps were empty of live oil. And these green torches set forth perilous smoke. It suffocated throats that would have prayed, and blinded with tears the eyes that would have seen. There was no sound but the hissing of wet wood. A pall of smoke has drifted over earth. The smoke of pyres has joined it, and the sack of cities. It drifts across the chaos of men's wars and hides the sun. Then speaks the voice to man. Did I not cause the heavens with my star, send memory to guide you through the dark, and set my sun to watch you through the day? Till you were ready to kindle your own brand, I sent my children to build my fires for you. I sent the flames, but you must carry them. If you set torches guttering on the wind, then is the darkness born of your own grief. You give green torches into puppet hands. Think triple crowns can give a man my sight. Amongst you there are men with radiant eyes whom you could follow, yet you deny their name, and with it mine. Honor the holder of the living flame above all your kings. Honor no priest that does not hear my voice. Honor no light that does not show my face, and with my face your own. And here we come to the last chapter. The Carola I wore. It seemed that I was already separate from my body. It was not Carola whose hair Anna braided, nor Carola who drank the cordials to please her Anna. It was as though I watched her try to mend my dress and wondered why she wept to see the velvet threadbare when I knew I had to wear it so short a while. Even when rain darkened the sky, I would not allow the shutters to be closed. I lived with the sky to wake, to sleep, to dream, to see the dawn, Aurora's dawn, rosy with cherubim, or that grey stealth when night with quiet hands draw back the shade that guards the dark from heavy-lidded day. The scudding clouds of autumn called down the wind with greetings to me, and a calm evening brought contentment, closed away my fears, hushed vain regrets for living in the world. I knew that death brought no imperious summons, but waited, calm and patient, by that stream which carried me towards him, so quiet a stream, silver between the banks, where grew strange flowers that with their fleeting scent bemused my thoughts. No longer was the music of the spheres remote from me. Sometimes I would try to find a thread of it upon my lute, a thread of sound in that great harmony, and then it seemed that I could hear myself as one small note in a titanic surge. One note, yet must the string be sweetly tuned and forged of silver. So Carola waited, ready to join the slow procession of the other eyes, for the circle of her life was nearly joined. Those hands on the green coverlet are not mine, but Carola's, hands that played a lute and clenched with pain, such quiet, thin hands no longer trying to keep their hold on life. It could not be Carola who thought of what I knew, for Carola had been a heretic. She was so proud of heresy, saw priests and abbess as dark enemies. It was as though she had hated a blind man for his sightless eyes, or mocked the deaf. I should have been compassionate to those nuns who seemed to live while coffined in their creed, and with compassion I might have found their hearts and shown them the living Christ on the crucifix. She had fought for her half-remembered truths against their creed, not wise enough to show that in his light shone the same truth that has lit this dark earth since it was born of time. Every clear flame is like each onto each. Some may be tapers that only light a room, some blaze as beacons on a mountain crest, yet are they one. The light of the two lands was the light of Christ, the light that burned before the flood was sent, the light that had shone for long millennia since those first fires were kindled from the moon. All heavenly truths are spoken in one voice, spoken in multiplicity of tongues, by priests, by husbandman, by child, by sage. The stars sing the same song that the grass hears as the wind passes, and within each of us that clear spark which the cold wind of circumstance shall blow into a flame. Then torches in our hand, no longer flaring but still upon the air, we shall be one with heaven's radiance. Down through the years has my far memory come to Italy, where Carola lived a day and now stops at the inn of death, to rest before she takes another path. To where? What will my name be? How will my flesh be carved? Shall I be born again to wear a crown, or must I be poor and hungry, and alone, hungry for more than bread, thirsty for water that I cannot find, the water only the wise can pour for me? Perhaps I may look back to this kindly room, and with a brighter memory see myself who once was Carola. Then will my hands be strong, a warrior's hands, a priest's, a poet's? Shall I be wise in words, so Carola's thoughts may find expression in another age, when men are not afraid of hearsay? How many lives, how many lives must pass before my torch shall blaze in the dark? How long before my clear voice shall be heard above the crowds that mutter in their fear? I found the strength to die for hearsay. Give me that greater strength to live for truth. Death gives me courage to die as Carola. There are people in the room, people who are strange to me, people I have not summoned. There is a murmur I used to be afraid of. Water is dripping from the lip of a cistern. The air is heavy with incense. It has made it more difficult to breathe. They have shut that window against me. Why have they sent for a nun and a priest to watch me? Anna must have been afraid for my soul. Backwards and forwards the censer swings. They have put bread without virtue on my tongue. I feel them make the sign of the cross upon my forehead. The sand is whispering through the hourglass. How many times must it be turned again till I am free? Anna is weeping, but I'm not strong enough to bring her comfort. I'm alone with these three strangers. I never thought that death would be another loneliness. I thought Petruchio and my shining one would come for me. It is only Carola who is alone. I am in company. The stars are singing and I can hear them, yet they are far away. The silver string is clearly tuned, the string that is Carola. It will be true when the silver cord is broken, the silver cord that binds me to this earth. Now I can hear that melody Carola longed for, yet never heard, that strange tune from the other side of sound. I have become a lute where music lives. I hear, all other sound is mute, in harmonies that bear me as a stream down to the tide, where dreams are born into reality. Yet I must look once more through Carola's eyes, those eyes through which I saw this little world while I was blind to vision. The music has grown so loud that they must hear it. I see them cross themselves, and I know they have heard an echo from the stars. I see their eyes. Even in death they are afraid of me, of Carola. Then on a bier with quiet folded hands lay that cold lamp where once my spirit burned. No word they spoke of the music they had heard. They knew not whence it came, but asked themselves, was it the song of angels or satanic heralds? Have we seen saint or devil? They would not bury me in holy ground, until that shroud which had been Carola in secrecy was laid into the earth. There does she lie, the Carola I wore, and her white doves walk slowly and softly on her grave. The end. Well, I enjoyed that very much, and I shall read a little bit more about Joan Grant.